Trigger warning, anatomical and medical terminology. I'm going to use traditional anatomical terms because I feel comfortable with those terms when describing my own body, and it just feels like the easiest way to communicate. So that's what I'm going to do. You can totally use different terms for your body, and if you're uncomfortable hearing those terms, that is totally okay, but this video is going to utilize them, so you might want to skip it. I just filmed this whole video, but then the lighting was weird, so I'm refilming it again. Hopefully the lighting doesn't get weird, but if it does, we're just gonna live with it. And also, hopefully this take 2 makes the whole thing less rambly. Hello, welcome to the first of many videos in the Fertility Journey series. Gray and I's fertility journey was very long and full of tons of ups and downs. It took us 2.5 years to finally get pregnant, and we never gave up hope, but we definitely felt pretty defeated, and we were starting to feel kind of hopeless towards the end of it. So I wanted to share our experience to make others who are also facing their own fertility challenges feel a little less alone, and also help folks who are going through IUI or IVF maybe better manage expectations. I didn't really know totally what to expect. I did some research, but there was still so many surprises along the way. Hopefully, if you are going through this process or starting this journey, this can be helpful to you. But always, of course, remember that just because it happened to me doesn't mean it's going to happen to you. Your underwear is in the background, which I think is funny. And just to be clear, I say this not to scare folks, but just to prepare folks. Just because it was hard for us and didn't work out for us doesn't mean that's going to happen to you. You could totally slam dunk it on the first try. It could be really easy, but just in case that doesn't happen, this is what that could look like. I just wish I would have known what it could have looked like.
For the record, we do know people where they tried once and it worked.
Yeah, So don't worry too much. Oh no, this is gonna be horrible, emotional, expensive. That's just what kind of happened to us. But again, totally worth it in the end.
1,000,000,000%. There's 2 little torpeticos right here.
So basically there are a ton of different ways to start a family, right? And Gray and I decided that the first way that we wanted to try and start our family building was with IUI. And if you don't know the difference between IUI and IVF, I will explain them really quickly. IUI, I believe, stands for intrauterine insemination, and IVF stands for in vitro fertilization. I think that's right. Please correct me if I'm wrong. With IUI, somebody takes a specimen of sperm. It could be fresh, it could be frozen, it could be whatever, and then another person naturally ovulates, and then the timing of that ovulation is tracked with a test. It's very similar to a pregnancy test. It's an ovulation test. You just pee on it, and then the ovulating person goes to the clinic, and then a doctor takes the specimen of sperm, puts it in, these might not be the right terms, puts it in a syringe looking thing, and attached to the syringe looking thing is a catheter looking thing, or a skinny tube, and then that catheter or skinny tube-y thing is fished through a person's vaginal opening, and then ideally also the cervix, and then the sperm is expelled into somebody's uterus, and then in theory the egg has left the ovary, and then in just a short while that egg and the sperm that you just inserted into the uterus meet, and then inside somebody's uterus the egg is fertilized, and then that egg implants. So that is IUI. With IUI, the person who is carrying the baby would also be the person who provides the genetic material via ovum for the baby. Then there is also IVF. IVF is where you take a specimen of sperm, and then you also take some eggs that have been harvested from a person. That person takes many medications and drugs to mature several eggs, and then there is a kind of brief surgical-ish procedure where those eggs are taken out of that person's body or harvested, and then you have some eggs outside of a body and you have some sperm outside of a body, and then you put them together all outside of anyone's body, and then you create an embryo, and then a person with a uterus is prepped with some drugs and etc. to make sure that they are growing a thick and healthy uterine lining. Once that has been done, the embryo is inserted into a human, and then all that person's body needs to do at the time, or all that you're hoping is happening at the time, is that embryo that has already been fertilized and that is already growing just needs to stick to the lining of the uterus, implant, and then keep growing. So you're just really hoping for that sticking, that implantation. What's cool about IVF is the person who carries the baby could still be the provider of genetic material via ovum, or you could have a sperm donor and an egg donor, and then like a third party could carry the baby. So even though we started with IUI, because it is just so much more economical, it's also way less invasive. IVF is so much more invasive. You have to take so many more drugs. The process is so involved. You have to do procedures and testing, and at least one person goes under and the other person, has the insemination where they don't fully go under. But like, it's much more involved. It takes way longer, and it is so much more expensive. Here, I'll do a quick search. Average cost of IVF. So right now, today, Google says the average cost for an IVF cycle, so just one cycle, is around $15,000. So that's just one cycle. And then let me do the average cost of IUI. In general, IUI costs about $300 to $1,000 without insurance. None of our fertility things were covered with insurance, so that would be applicable to us. So buying sperm alone costs $1,700. Every time we did IUI, I think it costs about $2,500 to $3,000. But let's say it cost on Google's low end $300 plus the $1,700 for sperm. That's $2,000. So one round of IUI could cost $2,000, where a round of IVF could cost $15,000. It's just astronomically different. We were ready to start a family. We thought we were going to get pregnant much faster. Spoiler, we didn't. Just like, it is what it is. But we wanted to be able to take the money that we could save with IUI and invest that for supporting our kiddo in the future. And like I said, we were ready to start a family, so we wanted to see if we could bypass the super long timing and ton of testing and procedures that are required with IVF. And then what was I saying? Oh, sorry. But even though we went with IUI, my dream was always to do co-IVF, which is where you take one person's eggs, a specimen of sperm, and then you put it in a different person's tummy. Because that's just always what I wanted to do. For multiple reasons. First, and most importantly, I always really wanted both Grayson and I to be involved in the process. I thought that place seemed so special and cool. And then, I don't know, the idea of seeing tiny little Graysons running around made my heart melt. So in my perfect scenario, we were going to do co-IVF. We were going to use Grayson's eggs. Grayson is the coolest person in the world to me. And if I could make more Graysons, I would be so happy. I think the world would be a better place. I'm fine, but no offense to me, but the world doesn't need more of me. So I just wanted to make more Grays. I wanted to be the person to carry, not because I wanted to be pregnant. I didn't really want the actual experience of being pregnant. That didn't sound super fun to me. It sounded kind of triggering for my dysphoria, but I wanted to be involved in making our kids, and I wanted the bonding that would come from that experience. So I didn't want the morning sickness, obviously. My pregnancy was incredibly complicated, which we'll talk about in the future. I didn't want all of that, but who does, But I was totally willing to endure it because I really wanted to grow them, And I wanted to meet them immediately in my stomach, and I wanted to nurture them and make them and bond with them. And I'm so happy that we did it this way because, first of all, my kids are fucking cool. We have the best kids ever, and I did really feel like we got so close with through carrying them, me and my kids. So I wanted to do co-IVF because I wanted us both to be a part of it. I wanted the opportunity to carry them. I wanted to use Grayson's eggs, and I always wanted twins really bad. And you have much more influence of having pregnancy with multiples through IVF versus IUI. You don't have total control either way at all. You cannot guarantee anything, but you do have a bit more influence with IVF. We decided to implant 2 embryos, and so it was so cool because even though IUI didn't work out, and this video is all about IUI, it was cool to end up doing my dream, which is co-IVF, the way it happened, and then getting twins. It was a really hard process, but it ended up cool. Perfect. I am very happy. Anyway, IUI. Fuck, this video is super long and rambly. I'm so sorry. So what was the progression of the IUI experience for us? How did it start? How did we pivot when it wasn't working? And how did it evolve throughout the end? Okay.